Hi, Brenda. I am beyond excited. We are in, I don't even know what week we're in now, but what I do know is that I've been reading The White Racial Frame by Joe Fagan, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this. So we've, kind of gone through the first four chapters, and I've even gone beyond that now because I'm just like I'm so interested in really like what is going on here and this, and what I've loved about this book so far is this idea of the actual the historical context. I mean, so much of this information we just haven't been taught, right? And so there are some things that I know, that I'm aware of, that I've learned just through the courses I've taken through my undergrad, through my grad program before I even got to UMass, but just now even more like there's so much information in this book that we don't talk about, right? We don't talk about it in our history classes, and we're not even talking about it today and how it impacts us. And so I just I'm like in this state right now, just being like, wow, what did I just read? Like, this is some really powerful and some really deep stuff that's going on here. And even just like, you know, as simple as like the literally the beginning of the chapter, right? The beginning of this book, and like thinking about that. I mean, that literally it's been 350 years, right? That our country, that over 85% of our entire history is literally grounded in and greatly shaped by this extensive slavery and comprehensive legal segregation. Like that kind of just blows my mind a little bit. I mean, it's like I feel like I know that that is a reality and that that is our truth. And at the same time, like I'm just really like wow, right? But so really like in just regards to these readings and like what the readings themselves are really about. Um, Again, going back to this history, like I wasn't really aware that like how deeply entrenched this like white racial frame is throughout everything that we do, and how it has been framed through like colonialism, enslavement, slavery of any type, and just the dominance of like white supremacy, right? I feel it's kind of funny because I feel like when I'm talking to you about all these topics, so I feel like I'm like kind of rambling off information that you're aware of, and so it feels weird. Um, just a little bit to be telling you about like what this book is about or what I'm getting from it. Um, but one of the things that kind of that struck me about this book is the idea of like how do we take the like hidden racist like the realities that exist, and how do we take them out of the closet, right? Like how do we show people that these things are not just our histories but that they continue to perpetuate today. And so one of the things that I was kind of trying to think about in regards to just the work that we do as social justice educators is how do I take like how do I operate under a white racial frame, which I do, not only because I'm a white person, but because that is the dominant way in which our country is constructed, right? So that is entrenched in everything that we do, not only our education systems, our health systems, right, et cetera, et cetera. And so, how do I, as somebody who wants to participate and does participate in anti racist work, how do I do that when I have to operate at this time under the white racial frame? And how do I also do that by not taking further the power away from those that are already marginalized? Particularly those that are people of color, right? So how do I continue to like actually say, okay, I can participate in this anti-racist work. I can recognize that the white racial frame needs to be reimagined, that this needs to be something that we literally change, that it can be readdressed, and in many ways, what Fagan talks about is like being removed, right? Like we can actually stop this white racial frame from happening and continuing to happen. But how? Like I think that I'm assuming he's going to get to more of the like how do we do this thing, right? And how do we counter frame? I know he's talking a little bit about, and those things are really important. And going back to the idea that I love that he is so like in depth about this history and about the history that's so real, that is not spoken about, that's not talked about, that's not we're not educated about, and that we really are like constructing every day. Um, the other thing too that I thought about within just the like idea of like the white racial frame, and how that is allowed to perpetuate and continue is really linked to the psychosocialization and how we are socialized to believe and fall for these like stereotypes and think about how the scapegoating happens, how the victim blaming continues to happen. And I mean, of course, this is all like so linked, right? Like everything that we've been talking about, from like Kaivel to Suzanne Farr, to takaki, who we're reading right now as well. Like these people are all linking this idea that like even without really naming it in some ways, that the psychosocialization, like this is how we continue to perpetuate, right? Like we continue to teach these things over and over, and that is all operating on the idea that the white racial frame is what is the right way. And so when we raise our kids to believe, and I'd also like to point out that I truly believe too, and Fagan says, right, like the white racial frame is not only constructed in the white home, like the white racial frame is constructed everywhere. And so what that means is that even families of color, when they are socializing their children, they're socializing them under the context in which they should try to reach what the white racial frame is. And so once we have an idea and what the white racial frame is equaling that dominance and that power, right, and having access to those resources. So either way, I'm looking forward to continuing this book. I'm really excited about it, and I really think that this idea of counterframing, I believe it's possible, and I'm really hoping that I'm able to continue the anti-racist work and contribute to making this world a better place, and hopefully finding ways to acknowledge people's histories and being able to move forward. So, all right, thanks so much.